I'm always intrigued when someone accuses me of being a liberal. All that tells me is that in their mind there are only two options, and I'm certainly not conservative, but that they have no other framework for understanding what I am, and that it's actually outside their spectrum altogether. It's helpful to understand that in our contemporary political environment, the spectrum is actually a very small slice of a much larger historical spectrum. We live in the shadow of the Enlightenment, which prioritized the individual. And we are all, at this point, some type of individualist, unless you grew up in a culture that was more communal or familial. What we call conservatives are actually a type of conservative individualists, or liberals. And what we call liberals are actually just more liberal individualists. We speak in a sort of shorthand where conservative and liberal are modifiers that leave off the fact that we're just all individualists, but of different varieties. We're really conservative liberals and liberal liberals. I always encourage people when they are given an either or binary to try and find a third option to bring some clarity to the situation. And in this case, you might be thinking of libertarians. Libertarians, however, are just extreme individualists. In that sense, they're radical liberals. What I want people to see is that there's a better approach that's more communal, not communism with its bureaucracy and hierarchy and all sorts of other bad things, but a more communitarian approach that appreciates our interdependent nature. And in this way, it ties to us all together in a social fabric. We are all inscripted, or you may say conscripted, into a society with its expectations, its language, its behaviors, its practices, its beliefs, and its narratives. Now, to be very clear, I'm not a huge fan of communitarianism with its embedded hierarchy, specifically patriarchy. But I do think that it is a better option than our atomized individualism, which is plaguing our culture and society right now, pulling at the very fabric that holds us all together. What I'm interested in is a radical democracy, not this thing we have now where our lawmakers are beholden to special interest lobbies and big money. No, I actually want people to have equity, if not equality, in investment in the bigger picture, in the system, so that they actually have a say in their communities, their workplaces, and their institutions. What may surprise you is that this politic actually comes from my theology, specifically my ecclesiology, my view of the church. I view Pentecost as the decentering and democratization of God's Spirit, God's presence in the world, the divine. My view of the church is an empowerment model that focuses on mutuality, participation, and accountability. When we don't know that all of our current political arguments are actually rooted in a view, individualism, that our sacred scriptures have no frame of reference for, it is foreign to the world of Scripture. And so when we import and impose our liberal expectations, whether they're conservative, liberal, radical, or centrist, we will always be unsatisfied and impotent. We're trying to manipulate variables in an equation where the givens that we think we can count on just aren't there. This anachronism or anachronism related to the Bible and our amnesia related to the Enlightenment leaves us in a wasteland of polarization and arguments that are irreconcilable because they are inherently incompatible. This is why no election result this fall will fix what ails us. The cancer that plagues us is individualism, and it is baked into the bread. It corrupts the system no matter if you are conservative, liberal, centrist, or radical. Moving towards a more communal understanding or a communitarian approach, which prioritizes cooperation and compromise, mutuality, collaboration, and gifting or grace, is the only hope we have of getting out of this moral morass. I would love to know your thoughts, if this is helpful, if it needs to be refined in any way. I look forward to the conversation.